She came out of nowhere, small shoes slapping against the sun-warmed pavement, cheeks red and soaked with tears, arms pumping with a kind of fear that looked too big for her body. In the bright afternoon light, with birds chirping and neighbors watering lawns, a little girl ran straight toward a parked police car as if it were the only solid thing left in her world. Her dress was dusty, her hair tangled, and her eyes held a panic that made time feel like it slowed for everyone who saw her. She didn't hesitate, didn't look around, didn't second-guess herself. She ran because something inside her knew she had to, because whatever waited behind her was heavier than her fear of strangers, heavier than her shaking legs, heavier than her tears. If you believe stories like this matter, if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the hearts that need them most. The officer who noticed her first was named Marcus Hale, a man who had spent 12 years on the force and thought he had seen every kind of heartbreak a city could offer. Yet something about the way the girl clutched her small hands into fists, the way she struggled to breathe between sobs, cut through him instantly. This wasn't mischief or a scraped knee. This was desperation. The afternoon sun reflected off the windshield as he opened the car door and stepped out, lowering himself so he didn't tower over her, instinctively softening his presence. People nearby slowed, some pretending not to stare, others already sensing that something was wrong. The girl didn't collapse or freeze the way many frightened children did. She stood there shaking, eyes locked on the officer, as if letting go now would mean losing the only lifeline she had found. Her name was Arya Wren, and she was 6 years old. She had been walking home alone because she had learned, far too early, how to take care of herself. Her mother worked 2 jobs, leaving before sunrise and returning after dark, trusting the quiet neighborhood and the routine they had built together. But that day, something had broken the fragile balance of their lives. Arya's home, usually a place that smelled like soap and old books, had felt wrong when she arrived. The front door was open just enough to let shadows stretch across the floor, and the familiar daytime sounds were replaced by a silence so thick it pressed against her chest. She didn't understand danger the way adults did, but she understood absence, and absence terrified her. Marcus didn't need words to know this was serious. He could see it in the way Arya kept glancing back down the street, in the way her body leaned forward as if begging him to move. He motioned for his partner, Lena Ortiz, who had a reputation for calm strength and a heart that never hardened no matter how many difficult calls she answered. Together, they decided to follow the child, not with sirens or urgency that might scare her more, but with steady steps that said she wasn't alone anymore. The walk back to Arya's house felt longer than it was, each step filled with questions and quiet dread. Neighbors watched from porches, sensing the shift in the air, sensing that the peaceful afternoon had cracked open to reveal something raw underneath. The house stood at the end of the block, paint faded by years of sun, a small garden struggling bravely at the front. The door hung ajar just as Arya had left it. Inside, the daylight filtered through thin curtains, illuminating a scene that stopped everyone in their tracks. The place wasn't wrecked. There was no sign of violence, but the stillness felt wrong, like a held breath that had gone on too long. In the living room, on the worn couch Arya used as a fort, lay her mother, Naomi Wren, pale and unmoving. Time seemed to freeze as Marcus moved forward, training and instinct taking over while his heart pounded in his ears. Naomi was alive, but barely. Exhaustion had claimed her in the most dangerous way possible. She had collapsed from severe dehydration and untreated illness, her body finally giving up after months of pushing beyond its limits. Empty water bottles and overdue bills told a story of someone trying desperately to keep everything together without asking for help. Lena knelt beside her, calling for medical assistance, while Marcus gently guided Arya away, shielding her eyes without making her feel pushed aside. Outside, the afternoon continued as if nothing had changed, children riding bikes, the world spinning on, unaware of how close this small family had come to tragedy. The ambulance arrived quickly, its presence both jarring and reassuring. Paramedics moved with practiced urgency, bringing oxygen, lifting Naomi carefully, speaking in calm tones that carried hope even before words could be fully understood. Arya sat on the curb wrapped in a blanket someone had brought from the patrol car, her sobs slowing as shock set in. Marcus stayed beside her, saying nothing unnecessary, simply being there. Sometimes, he knew, presence mattered more than promises. At the hospital, Naomi stabilized. Doctors confirmed that if Arya hadn't run for help when she did, the outcome could have been devastating. News like that settled heavy in everyone's chest. For Marcus and Lena, it became more than a report, more than a call logged and closed. They worked with social services, not to punish or separate, but to support. Community members stepped forward once the story spread. Neighbors who had lived nearby for years but never realized how close to the edge Naomi had been. Meals appeared, bills were assisted, schedules were adjusted. What had been invisible suddenly became shared. Weeks later, on another bright afternoon, Marcus drove past the same street and saw something that made him pull over. Arya was in the front yard, laughing, chalk dust on her hands, while Naomi sat nearby, healthier, stronger, waving when she noticed the familiar patrol car. There was no dramatic moment, no speeches, just a quiet understanding that something had changed for the better. A child's bravery had broken the silence, and kindness had rushed in to fill the gap. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that small acts of courage can save lives, and that asking for help is not a weakness, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and comments help these stories travel farther than we ever could alone. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment the word hope below if you believe that even in ordinary daylight, miracles can still happen when people choose to care. The little girl who ran crying to the police that day didn't just save her mother. She reminded everyone who witnessed it that compassion doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes in small footsteps, tear-streaked cheeks, and the courage to trust. And sometimes that is enough to change everything.